I want to just talk about a couple of the likely options that are out there. I mean, almost going back as far as I can remember looking at Social Security reform options, maybe the two things that get the most discussion are raising the eligibility age and raising the payroll tax cap. One would reduce the cost burden over time, and the other would bring in more revenue. And so I wanted to, we talked a little bit about the fail-safe solution, which is, just flood the system with general revenues. And Chuck, you talked a little bit about the problems with that. But so let's go back to some proposed solutions that are internal to the system. I mentioned those two. Chuck, what do you think about those two, and what are the pros and cons?
Well, just again, now I'm giving my personal views rather than objective pronouncements. But my personal view is eligibility age changes are among the single best things we could do for the program. Occasionally, you will hear an eligibility age change equated to being nothing more than just another way of doing a benefit cut. I disagree with that. I tend to think of Social Security policy and retirement policy in general as really having three main factors. One is the level of contributions you have to make when you're working. One is the annual income security you can get in retirement. And the third is the number of years over which those payments have to be stretched. And that third factor is really important, because if that third factor, if you have to stretch those payments out for more and more years as we live longer, you inevitably get a less and less favorable relationship between worker contributions and annual income security. Either workers are hit with really onerous tax burdens, or the amount of annual income security you have in retirement isn't sufficient. The only way around one or the other is to take a look at the number of years over which you're stretching those payments. And the academic research, I think, is very clear that even just a change of a year or two, or even sometimes a few months, can do as much for your income security over the course of your retirement as saving an additional percentage or two of your earnings your entire working career. So it's enormously powerful. It's enormously beneficial for people's income security and retirement. And I also think a lot of the objections that are raised to it are red herrings, to be frank. The most common age of claim today is 62, incredibly. That's 3 years earlier than the generation that fought the Spanish-American War was able to claim benefits, which is, it's, look at any photograph of Americans 2 generations ago and ask yourself if we are that much frailer today than they were 50 years ago. That's just, not the case. Yes, of course, there are people in manual labor jobs, people who are physically incapable of working longer, and we should take care of them. We have a disability program for that. We should definitely provide for those folks. But I think it's absurd to say that because those folks exist, therefore people like me, who are healthy and productive and have an office job and looking at a long lifetime, should be paid to exit the workforce prematurely. So I think we definitely need to look at eligibility ages. I've probably spoken too long about that. Going to the tax max, I think it's very, very likely that an increase in the tax max will be a component of reform. I think that it's highly unlikely lawmakers would be willing to do it all on the cost saving side. So there's going to be a revenue element. I would just issue my caveat that it doesn't accomplish nearly as much as popular mythology would have it. You're always reading things online of all we have to do is tax billionaires more, this or that. That's not true. Even if you completely eliminated the cap on tax wages and tax all earnings earned in America without limit, you still wouldn't get rid of even half of the long-term, annual deficits. So there's only so much you can do through that mechanism. Also, very important, raising the cap on taxable wages introduces kind of a Hobson's choice. You either turn right around and pay that all out in additional benefits accrued on the additional contributions, which is very inefficient. You're just bringing in more money now and paying it out later. You gain some, but not much. Or you sever that connection, which is a bad policy also, because once you start saying, all right, you're going to pay into Social Security but not get any benefits for it, then you're on a, I wouldn't say you're on a slippery slope, but you basically created a situation where you never know whether no one is ever going to know whether their contributions are going to be credited towards their benefits. That line is going to constantly be moved, and I wouldn't go down that road. So if you do raise the cap on taxable wages, you almost have to couple it with a reduction in the top number in the benefit formula, the top so-called bend point factor. So even raising the cap on taxable wages doesn't get you out of benefit changes. You have to make benefit changes in order to have a good effect of that tax increase. So yes, I think it's going to be a component of reform, but a lot of other things have to be done.